Hi, so today's title of the lesson is innovation. This is the lesson where I want you to be really creative, come up with some really exciting ideas of ways that we can look to revive the old tin can into something new. So I would like you to produce 5 different ideas for one of the following contexts. So we've got kitchen, the garden, the bathroom, office or classroom. Hopefully you would have looked at the designer's work, Willem Heffer. His work's on the page, and there's also some other examples of where people have given tin cans a new life on there as well. And he's made some cool light fittings actually made out of the bean cans. So make sure you check them out before you make a start. I'm going to go for the garden because that's somewhere I've spent a long time over the holiday. So before I start designing, because that can be really overwhelming, I'm going to actually start to do a mind map. So thinking about the possible things that I could do within a garden, the obvious one is a planter. So the size is an issue. I could probably only fit quite small seeds or plants in there. So potentially something like a sweet pea, which has quite small roots and sort of trails down, and you can sort of take cuttings from them, would probably be quite a good shout. Light is another idea. So I could create something to hold outdoor candles, citronella candles, or I could look at using solar power to become a light source. I suppose what I would have to do with the tin cans, though, is I would definitely have to drill holes so that I could get maximum amount of light coming out from them. The next thing would be something to encourage wildlife into the garden. So maybe a bug hotel, a bird feeder, bird house, something like that would be quite nice. Or alternatively, I guess I could go for some sort of sculpture, water feature, garden art. So now that I've got all these ideas down, it's not so overwhelming to make a start on the designs. So hopefully, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, this will help you too. So let's get started. I'm going to go for the solar light option. So forgive me, I have used an Apple Pencil. It is a little bit harder to master than an actual pencil on paper. Believe it or not, I am attempting to draw in 3D as well. So what I'm doing is I'm actually hanging a selection of cans off a wire. And I will have sort of solar fittings and bulbs inside there to sort of attract the light and make that all work. I can start to mark out on here as well where all the holes that I mentioned earlier will need to be drilled. You can always do different patterns for that. Like so. Great. So if your drawings are a little bit on the weak side, like mine are, what you can start to do is to, of course, annotate. And you can sort of explain your design choices. You can also do zoomed in areas to show how something would actually work. So what I've got here is I'm actually zooming in on how the little hanging device is attached to the tin can light that I've designed. So, and then I'm going to explain how that would work. So I would use a hand drill, obviously nice and safely, using a vise. I could then also go on to say that I would file it, and that would be how I'd create all the holes actually. And I could talk about how I'd bend the wire too. So you can also start to add colour. You would obviously use lovely colouring pencils and show your rendering skills that you showed off to me last time. But to give an idea of the colour choices, that's something you can do. Now, you can also talk about, particularly if it's something for outside, you might want to consider using something like rust-proof paint. So something that is going to protect the material from any damage. And you could find an example and put that in later. So when you photograph your work or scan it in, you can put it in a Word document and sort of add this ongoing research as images if you would like, and you can type into it your annotations if you would prefer for neatness too. So something else that you can also talk about, so I'm doing another design on here now, which is an idea for a planter which will be mounted on the wall. So you can look at how you would actually join those individual tin cans to become more of a solid piece. So it might be that round the outside you could use twine, or you could use some sort of strapping like old belts. Think about recycled things that you could use. Or you could use maybe nuts and bolts, rivets, and things like that. So you can really be as creative as possible with what you're doing. And of course, if you are planning on using solar lights, make sure you put where you'd put the sensors as well, like I have, just on the top there. So it will maximise on the amount of solar that it attracts. So here's some really good examples that I've had in already from other classes. So you can see here, this student had the garden as a theme, and she's done a light, and she's also done a wall-mounted planter. The light's particularly interesting because she's looked at the tin as a material, and she's actually unravelled tin cans so that and joined more together, so you can have different sizes. You don't have to stick to the traditional cylinder shape. You can also do furniture. So don't think it's got to be small scale. Imagine you had absolutely loads of these cans. So the example on the right is a table. You can see the legs are all stacked up there. All different tin cans stacked up, and she's obviously unravelled them for the top. Now, to improve this further, you could of course add the dimensions in sort of millimetres, centimetres, metres to really improve and give as much information as possible. So some more great ideas here. Completely transforming the cans. You can barely see that that's what they were before. So we've got a feed scoop there for the students' chickens, and she's looked at using reclaimed carabiner clips as the handle. Really, really detailed annotation on how it would be made, which is fantastic. And lots of quality control features about how the various product will work. And of course, that's a really good point. You don't have to use a full-size tin. You can use one of the tiddly little ones. So finally, here's some more. So this is actually breaking down the tin. So she's actually just used the bases to make a little sort of wind chime. And the same issue here, yes, so with colour, you do not need to colour in the whole thing. You can just do a swatch, saves a lot of time, okay? So good luck. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. It's a chance to remember to be really, really creative.